Welcome back to Jaycee Reacts and the sixth episode of An Architect Plays City Skylines. So, in between the end of the fifth episode and now, I've done a couple of minor things off camera, and I am mindful of the fact that the fifth episode was very much a short intro, a time lapse, and a short outro. So, we will spend a little bit of time. I don't think we'll do as much in the way of building today, but I will spend a little bit of time talking about the setup and what we've done, for example, with the interchange here, the setup of Birdsong Square, which I really need to come up with a new name for, where we're going to go next and how that's going to be completed, and then I'll probably have a brief time lapse as I detail up the school and the shopping centre and the high school that's going to go in here as well. There'll be a primary school, a high school, two primary schools, detail this high school, detail the new high school, and then decide what comes next. Because in the last episode, if you remember, I was basically stating it as a lay down misère that this would be the next tile bought. But now I've had a look at how things are set up, and in particular, what the game says is in demand. I have no demand for industrial space. So the point of buying this next tile here would be to get our industrial area as well as finish off this suburban suburb. But predominantly get our industrial area, get access to the railway lines, and set up this industrial area as well. Problem is, as I said, no industrial demand, high commercial demand, but I don't believe that either, because when I have a look at our demographics, now I have not, since we left the last episode, the game has been on pause. We still have exactly 5,000 people, which is where I paused it at when detailing stuff at the end of the last video. So our population's unmoved. Now, 38% of my population, let's assume that that's my working population, are adults. That would be, of 5,000, that would be, 76, 3,800 people. No, sorry, 1,900 people. 1,900 people. Call it 2,000. Just say some young adults and some of my seniors are still working. Let's just say I've got 2,000 people in my workforce. I have 1,900 employed. I only have 1% of them unemployed. In fact, that gives, there you go, right there. I have around 2,000 people in my workforce. I have 2,500 jobs available. I have a severe labor shortage. I have more jobs available than I have as an entire labor force right now. That's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like that in the real world. That's completely mental. So never mind unemployment. I don't have enough people to fill the jobs I currently have. I was throwing down trees and stuff and farms and stuff like that in our forest at the end of the fifth episode because I wanted to get more people working up here without thinking about the fact that, well, I don't have any people to actually come and work up here. So of my 2,000 strong workforce, 10% of them are working in my forestry industry. Growing this thing is going to have to wait. I just don't have the people to actually to fill the vacancies I've got there, which begs the question why this is half filled with blue. Blue should be empty. The green should be I think the crowd here should be for people to come and live here, for workers. So with that in mind, off camera, I went round and removed all these low density residentials that you see are now dark green. The dark green is for high density. These spaces were always in my mind going to be high density. I think I spoke about them very early. Along the Mesa side of this road here, Scarlet Street I think it is, was always going to be high density all the way down this little plateau, because by the end, this little strip of land is going to be worth an absolute fortune. And much the same, the inside of the Mesa, high density all the way up, and then around the inside of the Mesa Jar Jar Loop, that's all high density, with the exception obviously of the elementary school. Much the same around Footrot Flats, up against the Mesa on both sides, because there's nothing to really see there. Congratulations, you've just bought a condo that looks onto a cliff face. That's all going to be high density up this side here. Much the same down here, although I did it on both sides. So, and on the pedestrian zonable street, these grey and white for those that don't know. So cars aren't supposed to utilize this street. It's supposed to be just pedestrians and bicycles, which is why this avenue is kind of important for car striking U-turns. You will see every now and then cars will drive down here, but they only do about 20 or 25 k's per hour, which really slows them up. Oh, I've got some funky looking houses going on. What is that? Oh, the texturing's awful. My God. But the house itself looks weird. It looks like it's something built in the 70s that has a vision of, what it's going to look like in 2015. from the 1970s. That looks really, really weird, and I don't like it. This one's alright. This is pretty new. Texturing on there isn't great. Oh, that's okay. Alright, anyways, I've got a nice mix going on here. So, yeah, anyway, so the idea and how I lay things out, if you hadn't noticed, was basically at the end of every one of these breaks or streets in the loop, I'd put 2 commercial zones and then fill the rest out with residential, low density, and high. At some point in the future, I might put some paths through here and pretty this up a little bit and turn them into parks. I might just leave them as green space. I don't think there's any real need to fill them out because they won't get used that much. If I put an actual public park in there, I'm sure they'll get used, and as an added benefit, they will add value to all the houses around it. The problem is and this is ridiculous, if you just put a path in here, not a street, just like one of these paths, like this thing here, like one of these, if you just put that in there, oh, here you go, here's one here. So if I was to run a public park here, police, garbage, and medics can't access it. And so what happens in fairly short order is that you'll get complaints of either crime or someone will die in the park and the mortician can't get them out, which is just hilarious. And people won't use the park anymore. And in fact, it starts decreasing the value of buildings around it. So I don't know. I mean, there is a logical reason for it. If a car can't get to it, the game goes, well, this doesn't work, which is one of the reasons why a lot of your park spaces need to be placed up against roads rather than up against paths like this. I think the paths and the zoos and all that sort of stuff, they are exempt from having people dying in them, I think, or from collecting rubbish. The rubbish is collected at the main gate in those instances, again, I think. So putting paths and stuff through here, it might not be much more than this. There'll be a path going through and there's some trees, and there you go. Again, that's wrought with danger as well, because if one of these trees catches fire, my God, we've got problems coming out the wazoo. Something else I've done off screen while I was changing all these low density to high is I've put connections onto our tram tracked road for the future establishment of tram stops. So the idea being obviously that, the houses that are on these zonable paths that you can't drive on, allegedly can't drive on, they've all got easy access to, well, first of all, the bus loop around the suburb, around their entire suburb, and then to tram tracks, so there'll be a tram stop here, there'll be one sort of in between these 2 paths, which will service this school and will service this high school once it's built. I've got a primary school up here, so our bus stop and tram track will service that. I'll have another primary school that will probably go into this corner here, into this space here. I might even put out a street. In fact, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. I might do that. And then have a path that that's really simple, because I think there's going to be a tram stop here or here. I'm not sure where. So yeah, all this is set up now for the future integration of public transport. The idea also, we set up the bus stops in the last episode, I think, I did, and around Mesa Jar Jar. This green space here will serve 2 purposes. This triangle here is going to, well, actually, let's start with this square, narrow space here. Eventually, there's going to be a ferry stop. There's going to be a metro stop here and probably a bus terminal. So this is going to be something of a public transport hub. And again, it's right next to our school, our high school, which is a pretty small high school. And I have noticed finally our high school is getting used. We could actually do with a new high school. So I'm going to, when I switch this one on and build the new one, which if there's only one in here, it will be the big high school that goes in there. Yeah, we're actually starting to use our schools. Hallelujah. Praise be to Jeebus. So yeah, this will be a public transport hub. What did I say? Ferry, bus terminal of sorts, and a metro line. The metro line is well off down the track. In fact, the metro line might sort of stop on this side of the road. I'm not sure. That's way off. I've got to get access to all this up here before I even think about future metro lines. That is indeed way off. Now, all right, so let's talk about what's going on here. I've had an idea that I might remove this road and this tunnel. In the last episode, I didn't talk about it much at all. I built this stacked interchange. I believe the stacked interchange is the most efficient kind of highway interchange. I think the cloverleaf doesn't distribute traffic as effectively as this thing does, and I find this thing way easier to build than the cloverleaf. The cloverleaf, I don't know why. When you think about it, it's pretty straightforward, but it does my head in. So I find these Y interchanges, the stacked interchange, and the trumpet interchange, they're pretty much the only 3 I can build. Oh, they're not, but they're the 3 I prefer to build because I can make them look the neatest. And by the way, in the future, I will pretty this up. I'll put some key walls around here and paint the surface here and, make this look a lot more respectable. This part, most of this will be tunneled. If I can get access, I'm actually going to remove, this will become a stacked interchange as well, because we're going to need to access this western side of this road and come through here. So this will actually end up moving over a smidge, so I can put tolls on each side. I might be able to fit a toll gate in there now, actually. It might not need to move, but it will definitely become, at the very least, a stacked interchange. This will tunnel over a little bit. This will stay exposed, and we'll have a small high-density commercial zone in here and a small high-density residential zone over the, as I said, this is all will all be tunneled in, and the high density res will sit here. I don't know what I'm going to do with my little water pumps here. They can't stay like that. That's not going to be sustainable. Just plopping one of these down every time I run out of water. I haven't really thought too much about the long-term future of water supply. We're not pulling anything out of the river. That may or may not change. Don't know. That's really not something I need to think about. I will be putting down a solar updraft tower. In fact, let's do that. No, let's wait on that. I'll do that first though. I'll be putting down a solar updraft tower and deleting all these turbines. Solar updraft tower looks really cool, and as it's one of the highest points on the map, it will be a real standout sort of a feature, if you will. So back to this road, which I keep procrastinating on because I honestly haven't decided in my mind what to do with it. And the reason for that is because that comes back again to me saying that buying this thing's a lay down misere. I mean, I still think this should be the next tile we buy. It will allow me to almost finish off this stupidly named suburb. I really need to come up with a name for that. But there is a strong argument in my mind for buying this tile here. I could landscape out all of this and let the river flow in and create a harbour, which now I've had a look at the map. I didn't realize my fertile farming land, which is denoted in yellow here. I mean, this just now makes so much sense. That this is a happy coincidence. I didn't plan this when I was laying out the map, but if I set up my farming industry here, my fishing industry here, have all my distributions and warehouses in between the two of them, have my harbour, my cargo harbour, and my ferry depot in this space as well, then I've got my oil, my ore, my forestry, my fishing, my farming, all within 2 tiles or 3 tiles at most, but on a direct connection to to a highway. It just makes a ton of sense. Whereas the idea of having this little plateau here as a distribution point and having my harbour sort of sitting here, actually this is kind of small, and I don't think it's going to be big enough. I don't think we're going to get enough warehouses in. I don't think we're going to get enough harbour space in. It might just fit, but it's going to be pretty tight. The only advantage this space has is the direct connection to the rail line running right through it is a major plus, because I can put down a rail cargo terminal here as well, which is a huge bonus. The other site does not have that. I don't have any access to the rail line here. I would have to do something pretty funky, maybe cut the rail across here and then wrap it round the highway, cut it across the highway, feed it down, wrap it around. I don't know how I get access to that because it's outside my buyable space, and the cross the line mod doesn't work anymore, so I can't actually edit the rail line outside the city space. Gee, that's a toughie. I think I've only got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think I've only got one more tile I can buy down here. That's the edge of my map. Buying these 2 tiles here and building up my CBD, which is definitely going on top of this mesa, until such times as I've established a university. If I build up all my office space and IT office space on this mesa now, even if I construct enough suburbs to have a high enough population where I can meet the demand for the workforce, what I won't be able to meet the demand for is the highly educated workforce. As it stands right now, my education level, highly educated, 1% of my population that's mental, it's what, 50 people are highly educated. 71% are completely uneducated. I think well educated is graduated high school or graduated high school, matriculated university. I think the educated means you finished year 6 elementary school. I think. I'm not sure. I think that's how the game calculates it. If you go to elementary school, if you finish year 6, you're educated, which means you can basically read and write at a 11-year-old's level. That counts as educated for some reason. If you finish year 12 or whatever your equivalent is in your country, senior high school, you're well educated. And if you go to uni, you're highly educated. I think that's how the game does its numbers. Again, I'm not sure on that. I might check. I don't know. I don't know if I'd care enough to check. Either way, no matter what I'm doing with my next tile, and the uptake of the high density res this will stay low density. If there is a huge uptake of high density res, that will be a bonus. If I can address my labor shortage before buying the next tile, that would be a huge bonus as well. But the question will then remain. So I'm thinking I put a bypass in here and have the tram line, have this road just go straight through as a tunnel through to here, right? Just goes right underneath the suburb, comes out there, which means if you get off the highway here and you want to go to Birdsong Square, annoyingly, and it would be annoying, you'll need to drive under Birdsong Square, swing a left to get onto this road, which will now be coming down here. And the reason for that is that this is a loop. I don't really care about connecting to the highways as evidenced by the change I made up here with this tram line. In fact, the opposite's true. I'd prefer, it might be unavoidable in the end, but I prefer if the tram line doesn't interact with the highways at all. So this road here would then swing around, bridge over the top of this, and continue on its merry way on the outside of this cliff, on the left-hand side of the highway as it wraps around, and all our future industry that's built here, I can put tram stops down all the way along there. And if you're, Johnny factory worker who lives in Footrot Flats, you walk along here, get your tram to work, nice little tram trip along here. The other thing to keep in mind is I'd like to put low rise office spaces on the edges of this industrial area. This whole park will be an industrial park. No two ways about it. This will all be industry, and it will probably, with the exception of whatever, if I do go ahead and build warehouses and factories and stuff here, the specialist factories here, or manufacturing plants, I think they're called. This really will probably be the only industry in the game. Again, aside from, little spivs like this. I might have the space to put down another industrial area somewhere else, but it won't be anywhere near the size of this. It makes sense. Like the idea of all this being connected and in such close proximity and having all our specialist industries so close by does make a ton of sense. And I think I can make that work. So, with all that said, let's start. So I'm going to leave it on pause until I replace our turbines. I could roll out the trams now, but I need to wait until... No, I can't, because I can't complete a loop. And I think I need to just make a decision with what we're doing here. And I am seriously thinking, bugger it, this is going to be a bypass. I'm going to demolish all this road. And I might do that. No, I'll do the solar updraft tower first. I'll do that second, and then I'll detail the school, lay out our shopping centre, 2 new elementary schools, and a high school here in Birdsong Square, and that will probably be it. So let's kick that into a time lapse, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, a couple of steps backwards. Our population is now picking up extremely quickly. We've still got a lot of residential, particularly low density residential space available to us. We now have a demand for industry as well as commercial. I might just throw this on pause now. And I did at the end there. Let's pause. Saw one of my pedestrians. There's a lot of pedestrians on this bridge, which is kind of surprising me. I had them all on. This little Sheila on a little bike, and this little kid on his bike, and these two old effers. Look at these two identical grandpas. They're identical twins. They're 150 years old if they're a day, and they're identical twins. That's fantastic, and they're out for their daily walk. I love it. That's great. But I did note, and just picked one of them at random. Oh, where is Grandpa going to? He's unemployed. Of course he is. He's using public transport, going to the... So he resides all the way over here. Now, he's on the bridge just now, right? And so he resides all the way over here somewhere. He was like here, the awesome residence. And he's going to... Whoa! That is a walk. That is a hike. So these guys, like these little Sims, they will walk reasonable distances, and it is worth keeping that in mind. Like if 150 uneducated Tyler Hunter, 150 years old, if he's a day, is prepared to make that all-round walk. He says he's using public transport, so I suspect he's walking down to a bus stop somewhere down here, and will hoof and get the bus around before he, gets the bus back and hoofs it all the way home again. So I am sort of almost ready to throw in the tram. I didn't get anywhere near as much done in this episode as I would have liked. I don't like this whole bridge scenario. It's janky as buggery. I mucked around with it a number of times. Look, for a road, real world terms, you can get a road as steep as 1 in 4. That's a 25% grade, and that is legal. It is in Australia anyway. But for train tracks and tram tracks, you get anything steeper than 3%, and yeah, they're not going to play ball. They're just not going to want to know. They just simply don't have the traction on their wheels to climb a grade that steep. I mean, if they hit it with a run and start, they probably would. Momentum would probably take, that's not a massive length, momentum would probably take a tram up there if it hits the bottom of the road at a reasonable speed. But this is like a 10% grade. That is really steep for a tram or a train. The game doesn't seem to care about that. It'll let you get away with like 10% grades and stuff like that. This is really janky. I'm going to put a key wall or something, a retaining wall in here, and pretty it up a little bit. There's going to be a tram stop sort of shoved into here. But this is the general idea. This actually does sort of work. I don't know why I bothered putting a tunnel in there. I could have just put key walls all the way around it, be done with it. But we'll have a tram stop sort of maybe somewhere up here. I might not do it down here. I might do it up here somewhere. Might bring this down a little bit, get it close to the ground, get a tram stop. This will be just some office space. I'll have it connected on this side of the interchange and just wrap a road underneath this bridge. Small industrial road, couple of offices, nothing too dense, nothing massive. I might try and, make this side here a bit dense and follow like a grid and put some offices in here and, be really dull and make an 8x8 grid just to get that sort of working for us a little bit, because it's not a great space. It's not flat. It's not very even. It's, it's changes elevation all over the shop. I didn't really flatten this out, and I don't think I will. I think I'll just play with the uneven spaces for now and see what we get going on. But the idea now, this tram road will wrap around the bottom of this plateau all the way along here and then come up and meet its maker here, and we get our loop, okay? And then I will get some paths that will wind down this little plateau here, so as people who live in Birdsong Square can just walk to work, never mind catching the tram. Or if they get the bus, internally, the tram will be more for this lot, or for someone who lives, maybe up here, who catches the bus to here, gets the tram. It might be quicker. It's an alternative. It's an option. They can just stay on the bus, go around the loop, get off, walk down. Whatever. Right. And then, as I said earlier, the train will service this side. The train, the main focus of the train will be on cargo. I am going to see what I can do about getting this across the river here. But if I can get it across the river here somewhere, somehow, just shoot across, wrap around this hill, and come back. I know that's kind of ridiculous, and then come back. It would then mean our cargo and harbour, our freight terminal for the harbour and rail can be in the same spot. We can use the one building, and then just carry it through, just attach it to the bolt bridge on the way back, swing a right along here, and bring it back up to sort of wrap into here. Again, absolutely ridiculous. The train, it's barely 2 kilometers from there to there, would spring that left turn and wrap around like that. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I just go with the cargo idea up here on this little plateau. In fact, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to be able to spring this across here anyway. So I think we'll just set up the little cargo terminal somewhere up here, the freight terminal, sorry, and we'll have our cargo terminal for the harbour. I'll bring this water in. I'll bring in a water break, so keep some land bars here, have a sort of a formal entrance into our little harbour, flood this area, and we'll have, yeah, like I said earlier, we'll have our ferry depot and depot over here. Oh, depot. I'm sounding so American. Our ferry depot over here, our cargo terminal, port, and harbour, etc., all over here. I think that's the way we'll go. It's just a question of when now we're going to set this up. I am still thinking this square will be next. I'll have a think about it before the next episode, because in the next episode we want to clean this up. I won't play this forward at all. What's our next population? 7,000, I think. And then what do we get? Oh, we get the train line. We get actual access to trains. See, the other thing to remember with this train line as well is I'm going to duplicate it. In fact, it'll probably run in triplicate. I'll have cargo line. I'll have an interstate, we'll call it, or an intercity line. And then I'm going to have a high-speed rail line for within the city. So by the time we're finished, this bridge here will be 6 tracks wide. It won't just be, so this will probably be let's say that this is the intercity passenger line. I will definitely, and the only reason for that, if I could get away with just having 2 lines, I have a high-speed rail line and an intercity / cargo line, I would, but the game freaks out. It really does not know how to handle rail lines at all. You can't have any wide junctions or stuff like that. You've got to really plan them super carefully. If you have too many of them, the game will simply just freak out and you'll end up with traffic jams, train jams all over the place, and your train lines will just round to a halt. And if that happens, your entire city, once it reaches a certain size, becomes dependent on access to the outside, and the rail line in particular. And if your rail line grounds to a halt, your city can effectively do likewise, particularly if you're dependent on a cargo terminal, a freight terminal, which we will be. Although I've got the harbour, so maybe not as much. That will stuff up. You're going to see queues of boats along here as well when the harbour breaks, but that's for down the line. All right, I think we'll leave it there for now. I think, although in real terms, there's not a lot of modelling that's been done, not a lot of infrastructure built, the big change being this road and this one, the tram line road. Now, we are going to start seeing, hey, here we go, look, we're going to get some high rises showing up along here. I'm liking that they've got the, because that's the Art Deco one I put down on day dot. These will not take long to level up, because some of these houses down here, how are you so weird? I really don't understand that. All right. So before I was really interrupted, so yeah, I don't know how that house hasn't leveled up. That's really weird. Let's see how that goes. I shouldn't have done that. I don't like doing that. I don't want to cheat just like that. So we've got our old school apartments. Oh, they look nasty, don't they? They are pretty cheap and nasty. We've got our old Art Deco building here, which I laid down using Rico earlier on in our very first attempt at setting this up. Got some old tenement buildings. Oh, that's just ugly as, isn't it? There's some brutalist architecture for you from I was going to say 70s, but these coins and bay windows sort of make me think not. Oh, that's not. That's a bit older than that. It's very 70s-ish, though. And that's the frontage. My God, who's smoking the crack when they did that? That's unbelievable. Can we level you up a little bit? No. I guess not. Oh, look, we've got some European buildings coming in. I really should have switched the theme manager back on. We're going to get all sorts of weird stuff coming in now. These European buildings that would usually go in the city centre of a European-style city. I've never played with the European theming. I'm going to have to give that a crack, I think. Here we have another tenement building. My days. And it's a bit of brutalism as well. The cozy residence. The cozy effing ugly residence. That's shocking. Don't likes. It looks like something that belongs in the middle of Moscow. A Russian gulag. In fact, not even now. Moscow is actually fairly colourful in its architecture now these days, believe it or not. I'm not quite sure. Tenement buildings. This is supposed to be a high-class area. You're all supposed to be rich. You're living in crappy tenement buildings. Knock it off. What are we going on here? We've got a nice little Art Deco apartment building there. I rate it. That looks all right. And we've got a European, that's a Belgian sort of block house there. Yeah, they look all right. Not my style, but nice and colourful. That's a mixed use building. I like the walkthrough, like the pedestrian thoroughfare, and the idea would be that you've got another one sort of almost directly behind you. Councils here are starting to get a bit sort of big on that idea that pedestrian access matters most, and so if you're building a big multi-residential complex, you should have, if it's in this sort of block area here, for instance, you should have a pedestrian through thoroughfare through the middle of it that has easy passive surveillance as well for the safety of both the pedestrians and the residents, which is a good idea, as it should be. Oh, here we go. Here's another concrete block. Oh, you're looking rough, mate. You're looking rough indeed. You've got a tree right up your wazoo. How about we get rid of that and that one and just make it a little bit easier for your residents to actually to be able to see out their window, as loath as I am to demolish trees. Anyways, like I said, I think we're good to go. The high density res. Oh, here we go. More trees on fire. Good thing I put those trees in between those bloody buildings, isn't it? Fort Rock Flats has taken a bit of a beating, but we are 600 people up on where we started, and I haven't laid down a single extra zone. So the 600 people we're gaining, and we're gaining 260 a week, has come entirely from rezoning these low-density residentials, particularly in Mesa Jaja by the looks of it, into high density. I think all this population that we've lost around Fort Rock Flats, because I can't see any high-density building at all in there. I don't think, there's one. No, there's not, because you're low density and you shouldn't be there. And that's another thing. I thought these buildings were supposed to, maybe I changed the setting somewhere. Oh, there you go. We've got a couple of high densities here. I must have changed the setting in the Rico mod, because once you change this zone, a building that's sitting on the wrong zone shouldn't survive. It should tear itself down. It doesn't vanilla. As I said, I must have changed something in the settings in Rico, which prevents that from happening, which is kind of necessary for the Rico mod to actually work, as far as I understand. Anyway, yeah, as I said, so we're 600 people up, growing at 260 a week. We haven't laid down a single extra zone. This has all been some more major infrastructure fixes for this episode, and some tweaks to how the city actually works, and again, some future proofing. So in the next episode, what's our target going to be? I'm going to say next episode's episode 7. We've got to get the 7,000 minimum. I think. Well, Grand City might be a bit of a stretch. Small city. I think in our next episode, we've got to start getting ahead of the curve. 12,000 in our next episode, and finishing off whatever I'm going to call, and coming up with a name for Birdsong Square. All right, I think that'll do for today. Thanks for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next one.